I can't wait for you to see this next interview with Rebecca Evans. She's a total inspiration. Most of the people we work with are business owners. They come to us because they want to get their business out in front of the world, eliminate all competition. Some people, however, come to us because they've got a message on their heart that they just have to get out to the world, or they want to fulfill some creativity and get that out in front of the world. Rebecca was in that latter group. She has a fantastic day job. She's a social worker, makes a huge difference in the world. And yet, as fulfilling as her day-to-day work is, she knew that she had this latent creativity that wasn't being tapped, wasn't being fulfilled, and she had a contribution to make to the world with this creativity. What we did is got all that creativity honed, and she created a fantastic podcast. Now you might think, wow, there are millions of podcasts out there today. And that's true. But a few of them succeed. Rebecca's is one, because she knew exactly how to get the right message in the hands of the right audience. Within her first year of podcasting alone, Rebecca accomplished more than most podcasters ever will, including being invited to speak at Comic-Con. What? Who does that? Like, I want to speak at Comic-Con. I've never been asked. I'm teasing. I have nothing relevant to offer at Comic-Con. But the point is, it's this, Rebecca's story is a really inspiring one about following your heart, getting a message out to the world, and making an impact with it. So without further ado, I shall turn it over to the woman in her own words. Before I do, though, think for yourself. Do you have some passion, some mission, some message on your heart that you've been longing to get out to the world? What would it look like for you if you were able to do that? Okay, enjoy the interview. Rebecca Evans.
Cheryl Hunter.
Such a delight that you're here. Woohoo! Oopsie. I don't know. I'm obviously not the pro recorder I thought I was. I'm about to knock the camera off the table here. Okay. Hi.
With any luck, there won't be an earthquake.
Exactly. Why am I laughing? Not funny. So it really is a delight to see you. I just keep watching your star rise and rise and rise. And thank you for making time.
Absolutely.
I know
always time. This is always good.
You're such a hot shot. It's like, again, I'm going to book your time way in advance now. Woohoo!
I won't argue with you because I know that does me no good, but.
Well, it's truly a delight. It really is a joy and a delight to watch you continue to soar like you are. So I am thrilled to share your story with people. And I want to hear, what was it like, to have this burning desire inside of you that wasn't being expressed?
Mm-hmm. So for me, it was interesting to think of what it was like, because when you have a burning desire to do something, whatever it is, and for me, it was finding and living my creativity and finding and doing my creativity through podcasting. And I had walked into the Los Angeles Podcast Festival years ago and went into the lab, fell in love with podcasting, loved seeing the independent podcasters in there. There were all the big name stars doing live shows, and that's exciting. That's an incredible experience. Sitting in a room, you would think on the surface of it, you want to sit in a room and watch someone interview someone else on a audio recording. Yes, it's actually quite wonderful and soothing at the same time. It's exciting and soothing at the same time, and there's this sense of shared experience in the room. So those shows were great. But going into the lab and seeing independent podcasters interviewing people and their setup and the way they went about it and following them, I loved every bit of it. But I was not taking action. And the interesting thing I was going to say at the beginning is, when you're thinking so clearly and imagining yourself doing something,
Right.
it does almost feel like you're doing it. And I feel like that can be a little bit of a trap and a little bit of a hindrance
Oh, yes.
because you fantasize
Mm-hmm.
and you imagine doing it and you almost feel the same of doing it. In fact, you feel the excitement and all the greatness of doing it, but what you don't have to go through is the fear and trepidation and facing failure and trial and error of actually doing it. So I did that for a long time, from at least 2014. And last year in 2018, I did a couple of things. One, I started I took a voiceover course to just kind of listen to my voice and get some tips on how to record yourself and how to do your best performance and come across clearly. I had been a public speaker and a trainer, and I had comfort in that area, but recording yourself is different from doing that. Then I also had a break free call with you, and got that email one day with an offer of a free call. Got on the call after one of my voice group sessions, so I was
I
feeling good.
remember that. You were in the car, right? Am
I
I?
was in the car. I did all of those things in the car. Sound is good in a small enclosed space, but also at that time in my life, I had no capability of actually creating quiet space and dedicated attention anywhere other than if I drove away from my life and sat in the car and did it. So that's what I would do. And I refer to the car as my cocoon sometimes. And it's interesting how the butterfly has now emerged from the cocoon. So
Amen.
silly, but it is. That is what it feels like. So we had that call, and as I've said before, almost immediately deep dive into my feelings, and no longer was I able to deny that I was denying myself the life that I really wanted, and I was letting old patterns and old thoughts and experiences and messages hold me back and keeping me from actually stepping out and doing the things I wanted to do. So I had a great experience through Break Free Formula, worked on a lot of things, went from not talking at all on the calls to expressing everything, crying, cheering, being happy, being sad, being mad, going through the gamut of everything, and using the program to come out the other side. When you talk about finding your voice, though, that is exactly what Break Free Formula did for me, along with other things that I also did. But I believe I did those things and made the most of those things because I had the insight that came out of Break Free Formula. And for me, I did find my voice and enjoyed and felt confident in recording myself and using my voice to reach out and invite people to be on my show. I was also able to get really honest about what I wanted my show to be about. And then we can talk about this, then found out through course of doing it that I had this gift for interviewing that I didn't even know that I had.
Yes.
And that's been like icing on the cake.
Yes. Not only did you gain your voice and this creative expression, but found a way to give others a voice and a new creative expression.
Yes. Yes. I've had artists talk with me, and through the interview, a couple of them have said, when I ask a question, they'll say, "Oh, I hadn't thought about it that way before," or "I hadn't thought about that," or "You're actually getting me to take a look at this." And I do feel like with any human interaction, we take away something from it. I feel like at the end of the interviews, I've not only gotten a great interview from this artist, but that I've also contributed to their insight and their joy and their appreciation for what they do.
So magnificent. Sorry. Again, I'm not the interviewer, you are. It's so funny. There was some noise. I thought, oh, let me mute. Large plane overhead.
Yep.
I'm sure you've got very good ways of dealing with all of those things in your interviews. So it's like you've come alive in this process, and to think of you, I love your analogy of the cocoon and the butterfly, because it seems so apropos. Hiding away, stealing away in your car, not only for the sound quality of like being able to have silence, but in some regard, you were like that, like cocooned off from sharing this gift with people, from bringing your message and your creativity to the world where you could stand in the spotlight rather than in the shadows.
Right, right.
And that is such an inspiration to witness. You're doing it in such a glorious way. Huge acknowledgement. And
Thank
so
you.
what have you been experiencing now?
Well, since I've started the podcast, and really it was just about taking action and starting and getting started and doing it, and putting away that fear of doing it wrong, fear that you're going to get in trouble if you do something wrong, incredible fear of embarrassment, because some of the moments in life that had defined me were related to shame and embarrassment, but realizing that wasn't going to kill me, but that hiding away and not fulfilling and not doing what I truly wanted to do might not kill me, but it certainly wouldn't help me live my best life and live as long or as healthy as I could, I felt like. So I started the podcast. I started reaching out and inviting guests. I had early on intention of just doing a podcast that would be locally focused, where I knew I could build an audience, and thought that was important. And I moved away from that and into what I really wanted to do, which is really having conversations with artists. My podcast is called The Art. And I've had the experience of thinking that even though I did it, I needed to kind of keep it small and keep it this sort of ragtag on the go thing, all the way to the potential for recording with a musician led me to reach out and rent studio space for a special interview. And that led me to reaching out and inviting the comic Laura House and her fiance, the trumpet player Brian Schwartz, to be on the show in the studio. And then since then, I've done 2 other interviews in that studio, because I choose to invest in doing that. And just that alone, being in a professional space, giving that gift to myself and to my guests, and recording at that level, which takes away a lot of the editing headaches, but it also just gives me that feeling and that experience of truly doing this to the best of my ability. And then the podcaster, Cheryl Jones, who does a podcast called Movies Made Me, where she interviews people about the movies that influenced their life. She was one of the pals from the podcast festival. And she was very generous in offering any tips or any lessons from her experience as an independent podcaster. So I invited her to actually be my first guest and have that first interview. And it was a lot of fun. It was great fun. I've stayed in touch with her. And she's sometimes a mentor for me as I've gone through setting up and standing up my podcast. She, every year, is a panelist. She's part of this panel called the Podcast Advocates. And they present a panel at San Diego Comic-Con, the International Comic-Con. And this year, because of some commitments to very important nonprofit work that she does, she wasn't able to be on the panel. She wasn't going to be able to make it on the Saturday to be at Comic-Con. And she was telling me this story. She was sharing this with me, and she was very sad. And I said, "Oh, really? That's a bummer." And then I said, "Well, Cheryl, I've been on panels before for my other work. If they need someone, I'd be glad to do it. I've got a new podcast." Kind of just thinking, who knows, maybe not. I wasn't really thinking it would seriously happen. She conveyed that to the panel leader, and next thing I know, I'm getting a message and an invitation, and I was part of the Podcast Advocates panel at the 50th anniversary of San Diego Comic-Con just a couple of weeks ago, and got to talk about the art and share, and also have that experience. The people in the room were people just like me who wanted to stand up their podcasts, wanted to get started in podcasts, or were podcasting but wanted to learn more about what other people do in the field and get some tips for that. One gentleman stood up at the mic and even said last year he had not been a podcaster and had attended, and in the past year he had set up his podcast, started it, launched it, and he gave Cheryl credit for what she had shared on the panel. Other people stood up and asked questions about how to get started, how to do certain things. And then after the panel, there were people coming up to me and thanking me for what I shared and what I had contributed to the community. So when I'm struggling with editing and when I'm behind in posting and when I'm wondering who my next guest is going to be, just know that's part of it. Every artist, every creative person, and every person expressing their art in life, whatever their talent is, whatever their strength, their vocation, their work is, wherever that lies, whether it's in what we think of as traditional art or their art to whatever they do well, everyone's on that continuum of some things are going great, some things are still a place to learn and to grow and room for improvement, but you can still contribute to one another and share and at the same time learn. So those are some of the exciting things that I've been doing, and I can hardly believe it, but at the same time it feels right.
Yes, just so outstanding, well deserved in every way. Thank you for making the time to be here and share your triumphant journey with us.
Thank you for everything, Cheryl.
Oh, my pleasure and honor. Thank you.